A common question people ask is, if God created us, who created him? In this video, we're going to answer this question. I recently saw this video here from Alpha and Omega Productions, where he plays a clip of Kent Hovind eloquently answering this question. However, I felt like he left a little bit of it undone. But before we get into that, let's play a little bit of this clip and let me know what you guys think.
I am confused. Being philosophically consistent and being a very honest person, I'm sure you can tell me where God came from. And in addition, once you've told me where God comes from, please try to clarify how you can figure that a spiritual force can have an impact on a material universe to create it. I think that some years ago we already talked about that kind of thing in philosophical circles at any rate, by posing the question, if angels are made of spiritual matter and a pen is made of material matter and spiritual matter displaces no space, how many angels can dance on the tip of a pen? I have a sense of sort of reversal experience here, but please do, go ahead.
You got 5 minutes. Now, I just want to know which question.
That's all right. You may take the rest of the minute.
We're supposed to do one question at a time. Which one would you like? That was part of the format for the debate. So which question?
I want you to fill in the story of the rest of the beginning of the universe. God, spiritual matter, impact on material matter.
Okay. So 2 questions. All right.
Go ahead.
All right, your question, where did God come from, assumes that you're thinking of the wrong, obviously it displays that you're thinking of the wrong God, because the God of the Bible is not affected by time, space, or matter. If he's affected by time, space, or matter, he's not God. Time, space, and matter is what we call a continuum. All of them have to come into existence at the same instant, because if there were matter but no space, where would you put it? If there were matter and space but no time, when would you put it? You cannot have time, space, or matter independently. They have to come into existence simultaneously. The Bible answers that in 10 words. In the beginning, there's time. God created the heaven, there's space, and the earth, there's matter. So you have time, space, matter, created a trinity of trinities there. Just, time is past, present, future. Space has length, width, height. Matter has solid, liquid, gas. You have a trinity of trinities created instantaneously, and the God who created them has to be outside of them. If he's limited by time, he's not God. The guy who created this computer is not in the computer. He's not running around in there changing the numbers on the screen, okay? The God who created this universe is outside of the universe. He's above it, beyond it, in it, through it. He's unaffected by it. So the concept that a spiritual force cannot have any effect on a material body, well then I guess you'd have to explain to me things like emotions and love and hatred and envy and jealousy and rationality. I mean, if your brain is just a random collection of chemicals that form by chance over billions of years, how on earth can you trust your own reasoning processes and the thoughts that you think? Okay, so your question, where did God come from, is assuming a limited God. And that's your problem. The God that I worship is not limited by time, space, or matter.
All right, so I wanted to play that clip right there. He does a really good job answering the question, and obviously a lot of people like this video. It makes a lot of sense. However, there's still some things that need to be said. I noticed some of the comments below the video, particularly this one here, where it says, "This is the most ridiculous answer I've ever heard, and yet people praise it. If God is not made of matter and doesn't occupy space or live at any time whatsoever, he doesn't exist. Those 3 concepts are the pillar of existence. To say he is beyond those 3 things is really to say you know absolutely nothing about God and have absolutely no reason to believe he exists." Now, what he's trying to get at is, obviously, if God doesn't exist in any space or any time or in any sort of matter, then does he exist? And that's actually a valid question, all right? And I think the answer to that question is actually understanding that God is in a different type of time, a different type of space, and a different type of matter. A higher matter, a higher space, a higher time. And actually, I can explain this out using current modern-day scientific theories, even some recent scientific evidence of a new dimension that happened this year, actually. This year, they did some experiments studies find evidence of a fourth dimension. All right? And this relates to string theory. Okay, I don't know if you've ever heard of string theory, but the idea is they're trying to unite all the scientific theories to make one harmonious theory. All right? And the reason why they have to do that is because what we currently have contradicts itself. Okay, they're trying to reconcile the standard model of particle physics with the existence of gravity. These two things do not correlate properly. So they came up with this thing called string theory, which is a mathematical theoretical framework that says that there's 5 or more dimensions that we're completely unaware of. These dimensions fold in on themselves. They're not like our current dimensions that we're familiar with, like length, width, and height. All right? They're they're microscopic in essence, and they fold in on themselves, or circular in nature. All right? So there was this study, or these 2 scientific experiments that were done or conducted that proved that there was another dimension. It happened January this year, and I'll read a little bit about it to you. In one of the experiments, scientists studied the behavior of light particles moving through specially made glass that bounces light back and forth between its edges. By simulating the effects of an electrical charge via physical input, the team observed how the light behaved, watching for irregularities that could only be made possible in a fourth dimension. All right, so the other experiment was used supercooled atoms held in place on a grid made of lasers. Scientists call this setup a charge pump. They use it to test the flow of electrical charge while monitoring how atoms respond. Both of these experiments yielded results that suggested a fourth dimension really is all around us, even if we cannot see it. So they already have 2 experiments that they've done that prove there's another dimension that we're not able to detect. And these dimensions, according to string theory, is that they fold in on themselves. What is my point? My point is that these dimensions fold in on themselves, which means, in a sense, it's kind of like an infinite loop. Right now, what we're familiar with is what I would call a line. Okay, it has a beginning, it has an end, it encompasses a distance. You know, it's something that has a beginning and end. It's finite, it's measurable, all that kind of stuff, right? Now, these dimensions are not measurable by what we understand as being measurable. They fold in on themselves. They're like an infinite loop. They don't have a beginning and end, if that makes sense. Same also with time, I believe, in these higher dimensions. I think time is different as well. You have people that have these NDE experiences, and they mention that time is different in the afterlife, that it seems like there's no really a good way to quantify it. You know, it's in essence like 1 day equals 1,000 years, 1,000 years equals 1 day. You know, a month could be 2 seconds long, 2 seconds could be a month. You know, I mean, it's just, there's no rhyme or reason to quantify time in this other realm. Okay, so if it's a different type of time, a different type of space or dimension, and a different type of matter. Now, that guy mentioned in the video about angels dancing on the head of a pen, all right? And he was just kind of jokingly mentioning it. I think he says it somewhere back here. And his whole point was that he believes the spiritual dimension has no length to it. It has no dimension to it, so you could have an infinite amount of angels dancing on the end of a pen. But in reality, the spiritual dimension, like I said, folds in on itself, so it's an infinite dimension. It's not quantifiable like our dimension, yet it still has dimension to it. It's just not quantifiable as we understand it in the finite nature. So, with that being said, it's not what he's saying it is. It's not something that has no dimensions, but at the same time, it's not something we can quantify in our understanding of dimensions, if that makes sense. So, with regards to that comment, the point is that God does exist in a dimension, in a time, and a space, and a certain type of matter, but it's a different kind of matter, a different kind of space, a different kind of time that we can't exactly comprehend. If we could comprehend it, we could comprehend this, which we can't, this fourth dimension that they've already discovered indirectly, which they can't measure, yet they know exists. So it's like, we can't measure it, but we know it's there. So clearly that indicates there's something there we don't fully understand. All right? That alone is enough evidence that there is such things that in existence. We have experiments, scientific experiments, proving these things exist, dimensions we can't measure, that fold in on themselves, which means a different kind of reality that we're not familiar with or cannot fully comprehend. All right, I guess it's akin to a very famous story I heard. I think it was from one of the Greek philosophers, where you had all these people in a cave looking at a wall, and all they could see was like the shadows from the light behind them. But they'd never been out in the world and saw what the world was like. All they knew was what they saw in front of them. You know, in a sense, that's kind of where we're at. We've only been able to experience what we know, which is in this physical realm. Doesn't mean that something outside of it doesn't exist. It just means we wouldn't understand it. So when someone comes up to them and says, hey, look, there's something out here you should check out, they'd be like, no, we can't do it. You know, it's kind of like this evidence here. Studies find evidence for a fourth dimension. It's like just denying it. I don't want to believe it. It's not true. I can't accept something like that. And, you know, honestly, this actually debunks naturalism, all right? Because naturalism's built on the premise that you have to be able to use your five senses for something to exist. You can't use your five senses to know that the fourth dimension exists. We only know indirectly it exists from these experiments, indirectly, not directly. You know, and in naturalism, it says there's only four, you know, length, width, height, and time, 3 dimensions. So that's already been debunked. Their assumptions coming in have been debunked. This is the foundation for naturalism, or basically Sam Harris type of belief, you know, that everything can be explained in a material, logical fashion or something. Well, obviously that's not the case if they found a fourth dimension that they can't measure. All right. At any rate, that's just my sort of addition to what Kent Hovind said, explaining why God doesn't have to be created yet can exist. He doesn't exist in a time frame that's limited and quantifiable like ours. All right? So that's basically the answer. He's not subject to our time frame, our space, and our matter. He's in a higher realm that's not related, and we can't really fully comprehend it. At any rate, let me know what you think in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.